Who did it better? Desbeins or Frankel? Welcome to the Pester Line. I'm Michael. No Sean, no Alex today. This is more of a personal project, which I'm kind of excited about. As actually one of our Instagram followers brought this up and brought it to my attention. First of all, this one's about the PWHL. Very excited about that as the season has come to an end and the Montreal Victory find themselves as the third ever Walter Cup champions. The second organization to win it behind the Minnesota Frost. So congratulations to Marie-Philippe Poulin and the ladies of the Victory finding a way to beat the Ottawa Charge 3-1 in that series, partly due and led by their phenomenal goaltender, Henri Desbeins. I'm going to do my best to pronounce it correctly as often as I can. Desbeins had an absolutely unbelievable playoff stretch. Goalie for Team Canada, amazing season for her all around. We're going to get into that as she was snubbed, potentially, in the MVP and the Goaltender of the Year race. Shout out to Emil for bringing this up. He and I had a nice conversation on our Instagram DMs. We do respond when you guys DM us, so please reach out to us on Instagram if you can. Sean and I are there pretty regularly, and we love having communication with our community, and we'd love to see it grow, so tell your friends. But Emil brought up the point that he feels that while Aaron Frankel, who is the reigning Billie Jean King MVP and Goaltender of the Year, had a phenomenal season, she didn't quite add up to what Desbeins did this season. Statistics prove he's technically right. The challenge for us now is to figure out who really deserves it and why, and what the argument for or against is. So let's take a look at the stats first for Henri Desbeins. Desbeins played in 25 games. She was 19-4-2 in that stretch. Had a 1.11 goals against average and a 95.5% save percentage on the year. In the playoffs, she went 6-2-1 with a 1.4 goals against average and a 94.4 save percentage. Going 6-2-1 in that stretch is pretty impressive. Opening with a tough overtime loss in which she gave up 5 goals and then proceeded to not give up more than 2 the rest of the postseason, which is pretty impressive in its own right. Desbeins had a great stretch of games in the middle of the or at the end of the season, winning 7 in a row, which would tie the most. She also finishes the year with the most wins of any goaltender in PWHL, tied with Aaron Frankel as well. Frankel, on the other hand, played in 26 games. She went 19-4-3. She had a 1.17 goals against average and a 95.3% save percentage. But in the playoffs, in one series, she goes 1-2-1. Gave up 4 goals in an overtime loss at the end of that stretch. 209 goals against average and a 90.3 save percentage. At first glance, you see Desbeins has the better stat line by points. You're looking at it from the perspective of, well, 117 versus 111, 95.3 versus 95.5. And you're like, but Desbeins' stats better, plus Desbeins won the Walter Cup. Like, do you have the playoff implication portion of that? One of the things I did, and I'm going to pull this up here. Editor Michael here. So, still learning how to build all this stuff together sometimes. And as I was making scenes for this, didn't realize that the screen share scene didn't have an audio capture on it. And so all of the audio capture sections are re-recorded as of today for this content. I apologize for the mistakes, guys. They're still coming through. We're still cleaning up all this mess. We've been at this for a couple months. The good news is a lot of that content is still repeatable. So if the content feels a little awkward here, that would be why. But make sure to like and subscribe, because trying new things is always fun and always difficult. But at the end of the day, that's what makes this fun. Back to the video. So the first thing we're going to look at is the goals against for the two goaltenders. Desbeins was fortunate enough to never faced any 3-goal situations, whereas Frankel had 3. The 2-goal and 3-goal situations are the only differentiation between the two of them, in all honesty. They both had 10 one-goal games and 1 one-goal game. Frankel gets the shutout, but that's kind of negated by the fact that she played 1 more game. The biggest challenge of that statistic is that's the difference in goal differential between the two. Also, I understand that my numbers are different than the numbers presented on the PWHL website. It's a margin small enough that it's, I'm not a statistics major, but it's a margin small enough that it does not impact the overall information being presented. It's percentage points different. Like, I believe it's 0.05 in either direction is generally not a problem. So apologies if my numbers don't match what I stated in the first portion, just because what I stated in the first portion is from the PWHL statistic website. Mine is run through Excel with limitations and rounding, so that's part of the issue as well. Going back to this, we're going to look at the shots against per game. Neither of them saw over 36 shots per game. Each one had 1 game of 36 shots, but Frankel faced 7 games where she had 30 or more shots. But Desbeins keeping a limited value of 13 games, mostly at the 20 to 25 shot range. Balances out though, as Frankel had fewer shot games at the 15 to 19 level. Better defense from Montreal aids in that regard as well, but it does not take away from the fact that Desbeins stood on her head when she needed to and played absolutely phenomenal hockey in that stretch. In the saves per game section, Frankel does significantly more work in the higher shot totals. Again, that 13 game range for Desbeins really locks in what she presents as a comfortable zone. What this can kind of show is potentially that the defense for Montreal was better than the defense of Boston over the full year. One of the other things you can see is in their head-to-head, Frankel and Desbeins went 2-2, essentially. Desbeins going 2-1-1, Frankel going 2-2. So that's also a wash. Just like a majority of the stats in their season. Both goaltenders had 19 wins. Both won 7 in a row. Both had 4 losses. Frankel had 3 in a row to Desbeins' 2. 3 overtime or shootout losses going to Frankel, 2 going to Desbeins. Frankel had 3 overtime games where she went 2-1, 5 shootouts where she went 2-3. Desbeins 6 games into overtime, 4-2 in those, and then undefeated 2-0 in the shootouts. As I get into my final thoughts, one of the things I wanted to point out was how the voting works. As you can see here, the voting is broken down into a very different structure than I actually thought. So 50% of your voting points come from the media across North America, including all PWHL markets. There are a majority American markets, which in my opinion leads to a bias that could have given Frankel that push because of the Olympics. But that's just a conjectured opinion. 25% are from the PWHL general managers and head coaches, and that in its own right can lead to a interesting bias, but also I think that's a great targeted audience. Honestly, 25% is perfect. 15% come from the PWHL broadcast talent, again, a majority United States based, as more teams are in the US than in Canada. And then finally, 10% from the PWHL Players Association, which in my opinion needs to be a higher percentage. I would take some of that 50% away and maybe make it 25, 25. Why not make it a balanced 25% across the board for each panel group? I don't understand why it's weighted more towards the media than the players. I'm curious if maybe they change the policy on that here at some point in the near future. I think that would be more beneficial for the players to have a bigger voice in how the voting is done. I think, or they have a separate award that's voted on by the players. In conclusion, I think there are specific factors as to why Frankel won it. Some of it being that the stretch in the Olympics, plus a 3-game stretch without conceding a goal. 3 shutouts in a row is an incredible feat. It's not end-all be-all, but it's an incredible feat. Desbeins is deserving of both MVP and the goaltender award. And in truth be told, if this was a regular season and postseason award, Desbeins wins it hands down. Marie-Philippe Poulin had a wonderful playoffs. That's why she won the Ilana Kloss Playoff MVP award for her performance, but it could have gone to Desbeins as well. She did not have the same stats as she did in the regular season, but that's to be expected when you're playing the best teams in the league. The other thing is, and Emile, I get where you're coming from. 0.2% save percentage and 0.06 goals against is negligible at best. And that's the frustrating part. That's not a drastic enough difference for me to say that Desbeins definitively deserves it over Frankel. Honestly, it would need to be a bit more of a drastic split. And I think they're both very deserving goaltenders. Desbeins has been phenomenal and has gotten just better and better each year for the Victory, as proven by the fact that they won the Walter Cup this year. Frankel kind of had a downturn as the playoffs hit. I think part of that is just the team around her wasn't strong enough. I think the Victory had the better team this year overall. I'll be very curious to see what these teams look like with the addition of Hamilton, Detroit, Las Vegas, and San Jose, and see how expanding the pool kind of balances the power coming into next season. Because these teams are going to look very different in a lot of ways. So while I agree that Desbeins deserves a lot of recognition for what she did this season, I don't think the statistics alone say that Frankel doesn't deserve goaltender of the year or MVP this year over on René Desbeins. I think a big part of that is eye test and just overall evaluation from a potentially biased American. We love Aaron Frankel on this podcast, and truth be told, I watched more Fleet games this year than I did Victory games. I'm a big Megan Keller fan, so that's partly why. But I think, to wrap this up, they both deserve it. They're both phenomenal goaltenders. And I hope we get a Fleet Victory playoff run next year where we get to see Desbeins versus Frankel in a truly incredible matchup. And if they start to split into divisions and conferences, that is going to be a rivalry for the next few years between these two. Truth be told, I'm a big fan of both their games, and I'm excited to see what the future holds for the PWHL as the expansion draft has just finished. The draft itself was just done, and we're getting ready to see what these teams are going to look like. Looking forward to some names for the 4 new franchises as well. Thank you, Emil. We really appreciate it. Hopefully, this answers some of your questions as to what I'm looking into for that. And if you have opinions, please put them in the comment section below. Also, if you're new here, throw a like on it. It helps us get out to new people. Please subscribe so you get more hockey content. We are going to be covering a ton of stuff during the off season. All 3 of us will be releasing solo content throughout the year, focusing on a lot of different things from the coaching carousel to crazy trades that just happened. We did a full episode yesterday on everything that happened from June 16th to the 24th, including some of the craziest trades that don't make any sense to teams really doing the right thing for their franchises. With that being said, I'm Michael, for Sean and for Alex. We love you guys. Take care, and we'll see you next time.